Standing in a crowded room and I can't see your face. Put your arms around me, tell me everything's okay. In my mind I'm running around a cold and empty space. Just put your arms around me, tell me everything's okay. Break my bones, but you won't see me fall. Oh, the rising tide will rise against them all. Oh, darling, hold my hand. Oh, won't you hold my hand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk on my own anymore. Won't you understand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk alone. I'm ready for this. There's no denying. I'm ready for this. You stop me falling. I'm ready for this. I need you holding. I'm ready for this. So darling, hold my hand. Soul is like a melting pot when you're not next to me. Tell me that you got me and you're never gonna leave. Trying to find a moment where I can find relief. Please tell me that you got me and you're never gonna leave. Break my bones, but you won't see me fall. Oh, the rising tide will rise against them all. Oh, darling, hold my hand. Oh, won't you hold my hand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk on my own anymore. Won't you understand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk alone. I'm ready for this. There's no denying. I'm ready for this. You stop me falling. I'm ready for this. I need you holding. I'm ready for this. So darling, hold my hand. Don't wanna know that feeling when I'm all alone. So please don't make me wait, 'cause I don't wanna break. No, I don't wanna fall. When you're next to me, content, I'm not afraid to be. You don't make me wait and never let me break. You never let me fall. Darling, hold my hand. 'Cause I don't wanna walk on my own anymore. Won't you understand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk alone. I'm ready for this. There's no denying. I'm ready for this. You stop me falling. I'm ready for this. I need you holding. I'm ready for this. So darling, won't you hold my hand?
Good afternoon, and welcome to the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign Healthy Cooking Demonstration webinar. My name is Kathleen Stanley, and I'm the Executive Managing Director of Sterling National Bank, and I'm proud to share that I'm the 2022 Go Red for Women campaign chair on Long Island. The Long Island Go Red for Women campaign celebrates more than 20 years of life-saving work on behalf of women. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death for women, taking one woman's life every 80 seconds. While nearly 80% of cardiac events can be prevented, 1 in 3 women live with heart disease and stroke. Our goal today is to inspire and encourage everyone to learn how to eat smart through the upcoming holiday season and beyond. Let's nourish our hearts and our minds together. I have the honor of introducing Chef AJ Anthony DiGregorio. AJ is the executive sous chef at Old Fields of Port Jefferson, New York. He was born and raised on Long Island, New York, and is a classically trained chef at the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City. AJ is a high energy chef who is as passionate about the New York Yankees as food and enjoys sharing his healthy gourmet recipes and tips. AJ did an externship for ICE at Tribeca Grill in New York City and worked with the renowned chef Bretton Lee and worked at Stone Creek Inn in East Quogue with chef Christian Murr. He'll be preparing a healthy and delicious red snapper with broccoli rabe and farro salad recipe. Sounds delicious. We will be sure to share the recipe after the webinar. Please feel free to write any questions in the chat box, and AJ will try to answer as many as possible after the cooking demo.
Morning. My name is Chef Anthony. I'm a sous chef here today. I'm going to teach you a nice, healthy recipe today. It's going to be a fresh red snapper with a light farro salad and sauteed broccoli rabe. Let's get right into it. I don't know if anybody's ever seen a red snapper before. If you haven't, this is him. We're going to turn it towards us. We're going to make a cut right underneath the gill. Actually, I should say the fin. Right here, straight down. It's going to make a triangle cut. So we make a cut here, and then we turn it, and we make a cut right here. That's basically just making our fillet, as simple as that. Then we're going to take the tail. We're going to make a cut right here on the tail. Makes our lives easier when it comes to removing the fillet from the bones itself. I removed all the scales off this fish already, and I removed all the fins and all that stuff except for the tail. So you're gonna take your knife. You could do this with any knife. I like a fillet knife because it makes our lives easier. You could use a chef's knife, just as good, but just make sure it's very sharp. Take your knife, go down. Make sure that that cut is there. And then we're gonna go along the spine with your knife, with the tip of your knife. And we're just gonna cut right along the spine. Don't go in deep. This is a very shallow cut. We're just going right into the flesh. Nice and simple. You could hear the bones as you're not cutting into the bones, but you're right up against the bones. You made that cut, and now you're good to go. I like to go, everybody varies. Some people go from this end and just fillet straight down. I go from in here and I fold it back this way so I can see everything that I'm cutting. So now I just keep going in a little bit more and more. Stay along those bones the whole way. That's the biggest thing. So you don't want to lose any fish on the carcass. So once you get about halfway through, you're going to get to the spine, which is right here. Kind of can see it, not really. But the spine, once you get over the spine, then you have to tilt your knife downward to go into the other side of the flesh because the bones are not there to protect that side of the flesh like they are on this side. So you go down. So you can still hear the bones, same thing. That is our fillet. All done. As you can see, one nice long piece. Put that over here. Clean our board. And as you can see, that's what it looks like when there's no fillet left. So there's your fillet. This is where all the bones are right here. It's only about 3 inches worth of bones. Down here, there's no bones. Over here, there's no bones. And over here, there's no bones. So just right here, right along the, what's considered, I guess, the bloodline, but not really. It's just the middle of the fish. You could just film the bones right with your hands. I have a fish pliers. You could use anything, really. You could use regular pliers. It don't matter, honestly. As long as they're kitchen clean, you're all right. Probably about 6 or 7 bones. Try not to gouge the meat too much. You don't want to lose it. You don't want to ruin the fillet. I'm going to cut this into about a 7-8 ounce piece, maybe 6 ounce piece right in that area. I'm going to cut it straight down the middle. Leave that there. And I'm gonna cut off the end here a little bit. Make a nice piece. Nice solid one piece. Very simple. We leave the skin on because I'm going to be cooking that skin nice and crispy. Cleaning the cutting board is very simple, depending on what kind of cutting board you have. I have a wood one, so we cannot submerge this in water. We cannot put it in the dishwasher. So all I do is take a light scrubby with a little bit of soap, scrub it down, and make sure it's dry. I also flipped it to not be on the same side as where I just cut the fish. Farro salad is going to very simple components: cucumber, red onion, cherry tomatoes, some small baby potatoes, and the farro itself. 2 cups of water to 1 cup of farro. This is a cup, so we're going to do exactly a cup into the pot. 2 cups of water. And we're going to put that on about medium high temperature. So we want to bring it to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and let it simmer, and then just stir it constantly so that the farro doesn't stick to the pot. We're going to do some cucumber. So we're going to use probably about 3/4 of the cucumber. Very simple. Cut it in half. And then I cut it in half again, in quarters. And then we're going for like a small dice, I guess is the best way. So you're going to go basically like the size of a little bit bigger than a pea. Yeah, about the size. Right about there. Not too big, not too small, but good for a bite size. I'm gonna put that all in our bowl. Okay, that's it for that. Now we're gonna cut a red onion. I know everybody loves to know how to cut an onion. Like I was saying before, the best way to make yourself not cry, sharp knife. Also, don't cut the head. See this? Usually where the I guess the hairs are on the back of an onion. Just cut it a little bit, leave the root, and that'll help the onion from bleeding as well. You won't cry as much either. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go a little bit smaller than this because we don't want it to be too big. Go straight up and down on that middle finger, and you'll be fine. So that's about the size of the cut that we want. Nice normal, it's about a small to medium dice. While your farro is cooking, we can put on a pot of water for the broccoli rabe because we're going to blanch the broccoli rabe before we saute it. And we'll do the cherry tomatoes. Very simple. We're just taking the cherry tomatoes and we're cutting them directly in half. We're also going to cook the potatoes. Everyone knows how potatoes are cooked. They boiled, and if you try to put a raw potato in something, chances are everything is going to be cooked before the potatoes cooked. So for me, same thing with I'm going to use the same water that I used for the broccoli rabe. I'm just going to cut this into like small squares, and we're just going to par cook it, which basically means we're just going to get it about 50% of the way cooked, just so that we don't have to worry about eating raw potatoes later on in our farro salad. I'm doing about, I don't know, about 15 small potatoes. Just going to put these straight into the boiling water. We're going to wait a couple minutes until this starts to reboil. And then as soon as it starts to fully reboil, then we will drop in we'll take them out a little bit. In about, I would say maybe a minute or so. Take it right out, put them on a sheet tray, and then cool them off before we add them back to the lettuce. Not to the lettuce, to the vegetables. Pesto is a very easy thing to make, I think anyway. It's also very unique. You could use a lot of different herbs For the most part, it's very simple. You want to just put a few things of garlic. I'm putting about 7 cloves of garlic. I'm gonna blend that first. Basil, I would hope that we just use the leaves. A lot of people like to use the stems, but the stems doesn't makes for a very grainy basil pesto. So if you're gonna use, it's the same with any same thing. I'm gonna put parsley in here too. I'd rather not use the stems. I'm just gonna put basically just the leaves is kind of what we want to be at. Anything more than just the leaves will make your pesto grainy and not as smooth and fine as you kind of would like. More. I would say about 2 bunches of basil. The pine nuts, you could what you call it with the pine nuts. It's up to you. You could roast them. It will give an added flavor, but it will make the flavor stronger as well. So if you don't want your pine nuts to really come out, then don't roast them. Just use them basically as raw. I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of pine nuts. I'm going to check on the potatoes. They're boiling back up again. So that's our potatoes. I like to put a little bit of olive oil just so they don't stick to the pan while we're cooling them off. Directly into the fridge. So now I got the pine nuts, I got my garlic, I got my basil, and I got my parsley in there. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of white vinegar. I'm only using a little bit of white vinegar just to help counteract the acidity of the lemon oil. It helps bring together the pesto. I'm going to do about half a teaspoon. This is lemon infused oil, olive oil, but I enjoy it a lot, especially in my pesto. We'll blend all that together. Then we're going to slowly start to add the oil. We're going to use probably just about this whole bottle. I would think maybe a little bit less. The farro just started to boil. So we're going to turn that down. Make sure when you watch it, the farro's cooking, you got to watch it because it's just like white rice or rice in general. It cooks the same way. So if you leave it, it will scorch the pan. It will get stuck to the pan. So as soon as it starts to boil, bring it to a simmer, and then you constantly have to watch it and stir it and make sure that it's not sticking. Okay, I'm going to add the oil to this now. At this point, if you wanted to add something to your pesto, you can. Like a lot of people add Parmesan cheese to give it a little bit more of a creamy, different texture. Normally I would, if I was making a pesto for, let's say, a chicken or a pasta or anything to that effect, I would be adding Parmesan. But for now, I don't add it because I'm Italian and Italians don't eat fish and cheese. I don't at all, ever. So I'm avoiding that. Okay, our farro is boiling, so we're gonna bring it down to a simmer. And then we're just gonna slowly stir and keep an eye on it. Now we're gonna prep the broccoli rabe. Broccoli rabe, any green vegetable is better when it's blanched. So if you're trying to cook asparagus or you're trying to cook broccoli rabe or even broccoli, always blanch it first. And what I mean by blanching is get a pot of water, bring it to a boil, take your greens, whatever it may be, in this case it's broccoli rabe, blanch them throw them into the boiling water, cook them for, depending on what it is, like broccoli and broccoli rabe, I would say about a minute. If you're doing asparagus, less than that, probably like 45 seconds. Take them out, either shock them in a cold ice bath or put them in the fridge and let them cool. And then when you go to roast them, grill them, whatever you want to do, whatever spices you want to put on anything, when you come to do it, they cook 10 times quicker. They're not hard. They won't shrivel up, and they stay very, very green. As you can see right now, this is pretty green. I'm checking that farro. While that's boiling, I'm going to get a pan, and we're going to pan sear the snapper. Okay, the potatoes are nice and cool, so we could add them directly to the vegetable mix. The tomatoes, the onions, and the cucumbers. All right, we got our nice piece of fish. The biggest thing with, if you want a crispy skin, is make sure your fish is nice and dry, the skin especially. I like to keep it very, very simple. I put a very small pinch of salt, some pepper. For this, I'm gonna put a little bit of cumin, ground cumin, and a little bit of garlic powder. Broccoli rabe is done. As you can see, I think it's way more vibrant and green after a nice quick blanch. Now we're just gonna put some ice water on that for the snapper. You're gonna turn your pan or your saute pan on high. Our pan is basically almost smoking. We're just gonna, a little bit of oil on the bottom of the pan. Now we can lower down the temperature on the stove to about medium. It doesn't need to be that hot. We're going to start cooking this in the pan, and then we're going to finish it in the oven. If you try to finish this in a pan, it will most likely either burn the skin or overcook the fish. I keep my oven, I got my oven set at 425, which is a good temperature. I know people are scared of high temperatures on ovens, but all that means is that things cook quicker. I like to cook quick. We're gonna keep this fish in this pan in the hot oil for about, I would say about 45 seconds to a minute. And we're just gonna take this piece right out of here. We'll just put it on a pan. If you have an oven safe cooking frying pan, I put the frying pan directly into the oven. Now we're gonna put that in the oven, like I said, 425 for about, I would say about 2 minutes tops, at the most 2 minutes. It doesn't need much more than that. So now we're just gonna take our cooked farro. We have a little bit of that lemon oil left. I'm gonna add just a half a teaspoon to the farro, just to give it a little bit of fat. So now our cooked potatoes are good to go. They got a nice bite to them. Our onions, our tomatoes, and our cucumber are all mixed into the salad. That's the salad, all good to go. I'm gonna take that, put that over there. When we saute our broccoli rabe, we're gonna put a dash of oil, quarter of a teaspoon. After the broccoli rabe comes out of the ice bath, pat it dry. Same thing, you don't want it wet. Wait till your pan's nice and hot. I'm gonna garnish it with a baby radish here. I like to keep my radishes raw, give it a little quick rinse. I'm actually going to check our fish first before we do anything. The fish is most likely done. I can tell by the cook on a fish just how it's by the feel, and we are definitely done. If you guys are worried about it, I would say cook it another, in that 425 oven. I wouldn't say cook it more than 5 minutes, and you should be fine. Just to cut me some nice little rounds. Broccoli rabe is done. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the pesto, I'm gonna put it right on the bottom of the plate. There's our farro salad, our nice pesto at the bottom. saute broccoli rub, pan seared, perfect. About I'd say about medium to medium well spread snapper, a nice little garnish of fresh baby radish.
Well, Chef AJ, thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's tuned in today. Let me introduce myself really quickly before we hear from the chef. I'm Diego Ortiz, Communications Director of the American Heart Association. Chef, that looked delicious. I mean, as you can tell, we had to edit just to keep things under the time constraint, but I'm so impressed with your knife skills. I'm so impressed with your ability to just talk us through so many of those things. So thank you for that.
No problem at all. I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and it was a good time. I had fun doing it.
Yeah, and we want to encourage people to put questions in the chat box right now if you have them. We had already received a few during the course of the conversation. I saw that you interacted. There's one that came up, and it was about broccoli raw, but I think what they were getting at was about picky eaters. So we see picky eaters a lot, whether it's kids or adults. We change our preferences. Like I used to love Brussels sprouts. Now I'm not into them as much anymore. But what are some tips? How do we help picky eaters maybe try some foods that they might not want to try or that they might not be into quite yet?
All I can say is that I know that for me personally, if I have something that's not cooked right, especially a vegetable, when I was a kid, it turned me off instantly. It was just one of those things. If it was, whether it was overcooked or mushy, or people have a lot of problem with texture, I think, and I think that's the biggest thing. Also, if it doesn't look good, people eat with their eyes before they eat with their taste buds and all that stuff. So for me, cooking it right would be the number one thing. That blanching process that I was telling you about, the green vegetables, is a huge thing. It makes it look good without even tasting it. Other than that, different types of vegetables, I would say, everybody kind of hates on broccoli and hates on Brussels sprouts, but Brussels sprouts with a little bit of balsamic vinegar in the oven, it's about as good of a thing as you could get. It's very flavorful. It tastes good. It's not just Brussels sprouts with whatever salt and pepper. It gives it that little bit of sweetness that for a kid or even an adult that's picky, you might enjoy it. And it's not necessarily bad for you either. I'm not saying overdo it, but keep it within reason. I like all vegetables. I would say try, if you don't like green vegetables, try other vegetables. Go into fruits. Everybody's scared of putting fruits with savory dishes, even though you can get away with it. A lot of fruit is good with a little bit of salt or a very little bit of, a savory thing. It doesn't have to be a dessert. Other than that, I would just say cooking it is the biggest thing, I think, honestly.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. I mean, as the American Heart Association, we always encourage people that they should be looking at 5 servings of fruits and veggies, somewhere around 3 veggies, two fruits. So I like everything that you said, especially about just cooking it and finding a way that you're going to enjoy it, right? It doesn't have to be the same way every time. You talked a lot about flavor too. We talk a lot about salt. Some people think that a meal isn't finished or complete until they've added the salt. Talk to me about salt. Is it a spice? What is salt when you cook?
For me, I work in a kitchen and I work on the line 4 or 5 days a week. So I'm used to making sure things are seasoned and making sure things are tasting right and all that stuff. But I do tend to realize that people like that, if they don't like something, they're going to add salt. Or they don't like the way it looks, or they don't anything, they're going to be like, oh, let's put a little more salt on it. I'll make it taste better. Actually, it doesn't make it taste better. Salt dries out a lot of things. You think that it makes it taste better. All it's really doing is enhancing flavor. It's not so much flavoring the food per se. It is, but not as much. So like for me, I do a pinch on basically everything, depending on what it is. I do a pinch of salt, or also if I'm frying food, you got to realize that fried food is already kind of salty from the oil. So that's why like a fried chicken or something like that, if you put too much salt, it goes from normal good to very, very salty very quickly. And that could go with anything. The same thing with the fish. I only put a pinch of salt on the fish. I'd rather use other seasoning to make it taste good. Like, a little bit of cumin, a little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of basil, fresh herbs are always great. Anything. If you want more flavor, I'd much rather put in like a fresh thing of basil or fresh parsley or oregano or something like that. It always will make it taste better. Yes, you could put a pinch of salt, but don't overdo it with the salt just because you're like, oh, I don't have anything else. Or, you're not getting anything accomplished. All you're getting is salt. It doesn't taste good. In the long run, it doesn't taste that good.
I love when you can offer those suggestions of how to add something else to give it flavor, because we do know that cutting back on your sodium, your salt consumption is a good step to reducing your blood pressure as well. You have high blood pressure, so thank you for including that. I wanted to ask you too, because you used all fresh ingredients and they all look delicious as you were preparing them. But when you're preparing a meal, do you always have to use fresh ingredients? Can you use something that's canned? Is there still nutrients there?
Yes and no. When I basically years ago, I was overweight and I had to make a decision in my life to change myself, and it was one of those decisions. And I did paleo for a long time, and the one thing I got from paleo was shop on the outside of the supermarket. Don't shop in the middle of the supermarket, because most of the stuff in the middle of the supermarket is processed preservatives, all this stuff. You're playing with fire, basically. You don't know what you're eating. You don't know what's in anything. It's tough. Some things, yes, some canned vegetables or canned fruit, stuff like that can be very healthy and not have too much preservatives, but I would make sure that you're looking and reading and checking those things before you decide, okay, I'm going to use this for whatever. For me, I try to go the fresh route, but on occasion, yeah, sometimes I use frozen vegetables if I'm home and I'm just don't feel like going to the store or whatever it may be. So yeah, there's still nutrients there, but it does affect flavor and stuff like that, and consistency and texture and stuff like that. So I try to avoid it, but there is a place for it as well, within reason.
And when you're saying read, you mean read the food label?
Yeah, I would say read the food label, do a little bit of research on certain things as to, what preservatives are bad and stuff like that. Some preservatives aren't too bad, or they might be, but, for me, I try to avoid it to begin with. But yes, I would get on reading food labels and focusing on what you're putting in your body, what you're actually eating. Like,
and what do you look
for me,
for
that's
in
a big
particular?
thing.
What do you look for in particular when you read the food label?
I like I said, I don't like preservatives. So if it has anything that has like weird preservatives in it, for me, I'm avoiding it. I avoid MSG. I've been avoiding MSG for a long time in my life, and that's tough to do. I avoid it because my father, before MSG was really a thing, he can't have MSG. It literally gives him a heart murmur, basically, and we can't do that, obviously. So from a young age, that was kind of in my mind. He would always say, oh, check that, see if it has MSG, or check this, see if it has MSG. So I look for that. I look for some weird red dyes and stuff like that, like stuff that just, that they're just putting it in there just to make whatever's in that thing look good, rather than it actually be good.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. You want to know what's in there, right? You want to really know
100%.
what's in there, so there's nothing that surprises you. Something that that I do, my wife and I do when we go to the supermarket is try to find the things that have the least amount of ingredients.
Correct.
Right? So
that's a great way to go to.
It's as close to just being the thing that you're buying, no matter what is, even if it's canned or packaged. I want to do one more. I want to encourage people one more time to share questions in the chat box. I see we do have a few. I want to ask you though, Chef AJ, do you have like any tips to help us determine what a serving size is? What's the appropriate serving size for somebody?
It all depends on, unfortunately, men technically can eat more than women, unfortunately. So a woman's portion size will be a little bit smaller. I try to like to weigh my food. I don't know if it's just the restaurant in me or the chef in me. Like, I go based off of what I would put in front of someone at a restaurant. So it's like, okay, I know what a portion should be. Like an 8-ounce piece of fish is what I would serve at a restaurant. Technically, that's probably too much for a normal sized portion. So realistically, I try to, if not half, it depends. On the protein, I try to do half. So like if I'm having a steak and at a restaurant, they're giving me a 16-ounce steak, that's way too much. That's 2 portions, if not more. So at home, I do it kind of half that. I do like a half, I'll do an 8-ounce steak, or I'll do a half a steak, or I'll do 6 ounces of steak. Or fish isn't as bad, but fish and chicken are not as bad. But for me, I try to weigh my things, and especially the proteins where I know that it's going to be a little bit more fatty or whatever that might be, just to try to limit myself from that. And that was one of the biggest things with me, was portion control. I'm a textbook overeater, always was my whole life. Italian, my family puts out way too much food, no matter what day it is, it doesn't matter. So for me, it was just like, okay, portion control. Just get yourself into a portion control life and you will be better. I promise you, you will be better.
Yeah, no, I like what you just said, because it really, you're talking about making that conscious decision to decide what that portion is. Like I sometimes think of when I'm eating a bag of chips, if I eat from the bag, I'm gonna eat a lot more than if I serve myself
Exactly.
On a plate.
Put it a little on a plate. It's
Yep.
all stuff like that. It's simple things like that you don't realize that you're doing. Like if you put a tray of food in front of someone, they're gonna go back for seconds. They're gonna go back for thirds. Like I know a lot of families now, that's how they serve food. They put everything in bowls on the table and everybody just eats. Yes, it makes it easier.
Mhm.
I kind of like to actually plate my food. Again, maybe it's the restaurant in me. If I'm having chicken, I'm putting my vegetables, I'm putting whatever I want on my plate, and that's it. That's where I'm going from there. And for me, that helps portion out. It's like, okay, I know what I'm eating, and that's it. There's no like, oh, I could have more of the sauce, or I could have more 3 extra pieces of chicken, or whatever it may be. You're just you're making it tougher on yourself to eat. You're gonna overeat no matter what. If you have it in front of you, people, especially if it's good, if it's in front of you and you like it, you're gonna eat it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those
that's
things.
a good point. I mean, I also really like what you said about the portion in when you eat at the restaurant or when you get the takeout compared to the portion you should be making at home. I never really thought about that, but yeah, I mean, especially, when you go out to a restaurant, the restaurant wants to serve you a big portion so that it tastes good and you keep coming back, but that's not necessarily the size of portion that you should be eating at home. I never really thought about that.
It also depends on what you're eating. Like a filet, chances are a filet is going to be one size. They're not going to try to give you more. But like chicken parm or fried chicken or any like chicken dish, they're going to give you a lot of chicken because chicken is a cheap ingredient. So they're going to make it look huge. And you sit down, you're like, wow, this is massive. And a guy like me who's big and likes to eat, he's going to be like, oh, I'm going to eat this whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what they gave me. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to try to eat it.
Yeah, it's hard not to. Like, oh yeah, I'll eat that.
It's hard not to. It's especially like if it's good and you're tasting and it's like, wow, this is awesome. You're just going to keep eating. You're going to keep eating. You're going to keep eating. There's nothing you can do about that. And
the expectation
that's
shouldn't be the same at home.
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't make yourself a chicken parm at home and put 5 pieces of chicken on a plate just because. That's not a normal portion size for any human. Right. It doesn't matter how big you are.
Yeah.
But
well, Chef AJ, we appreciate your time. I think I see two questions in the chat box that stand out to me. One, it's kind of funny because it's something you said in the video, in the cooking demo when you were talking about using a sharp knife. So Tyler asked, how does a sharp knife prevent an onion from bleeding?
The membranes in the onion, it just, when you cut through it with a dull knife, it's like like anything else. If you try to cut something with a dull knife, it's harder to do. So you're going to break it, you're going to tear it instead of cutting it and slicing it. So if you cut into an onion with a dull knife, it's just going to tear those membranes instead of slice. You slice them, those membranes stay together, they stay tighter, they don't bleed. I didn't believe it either, but now that I've gone to culinary school and been through it, like you cut into I make onion soup at work and I have to cut 45 onions. Like it's a lot of onions. If I'm not using a sharp knife, I got people crying all over the restaurant, all over my kitchen. So it's like,
yeah,
the sharp knife is key. It really is. I know people say, oh, put goggles on, run the hot water, put your hand in this, throw salt over it. None of that stuff works. Sharp knife, best way to go.
And Chef AJ, what is your favorite healthy holiday meal to prepare? Like what's on your table on the holiday?
I love fish, and that's kind of why I picked fish to cook for this demo. I'm a big fish guy. There's no fish that I don't like. I want to try all fish. I try different fish at work. I try them at home. And the funny thing is a lot of my family doesn't even like fish, but I love fish. And that's kind of what I like to try to do. You know, I love scallops. So I kind of tend to lean that way. A holiday, you know, Christmas Eve, Italian, we don't do 7 fishes, but we do quite a bit of fish. And that's kind of where I go. I like to go fish. I like to go healthy, you know, in that way. I like something like I did, a fish in that simple, like grain salad. You know, it gives you a lot of what you need. It gives you your protein. It gives you a little bit of carbs. It gives you vegetables, excuse me, and stuff like that. So for me, I tend to lean towards fish. Just from in my life, I like to tend towards fish. But other than that, I mean, chicken's always good. I like a good chicken. Everybody likes a good chicken. The problem is with chicken is people tend to oversalt or put a lot of butter or put a lot of oil or, you know, bread it and fry it. And so chicken could go from what is a very healthy ingredient that doesn't have a lot of fat to something that could be very unhealthy very quickly. And especially with sauces and all that stuff as well. You know, people like to put all these cream sauces and stuff like that. It tastes good, but again, portion that as much as you can. Get that down to just enough, not sauce and chicken. You want it to be chicken with a little bit of sauce.
Well, Chef AJ, and thank you so much for joining us. Before we hop off, I want to ask you, where can people find you? How can people get in touch with you?
I have, if you guys have any questions, you can email me. I'm okay with that. My email, I have a couple different emails. I don't know if you want me to say it or I could write it down or whatever it may be. You can email me. If you guys ever want to come to the restaurant, come to the restaurant. Say that you know me from the Heart Association video, whatever it is, and I'll come out and I'll talk to you. I do it anyway now, just in passing with people that I just meet at the bar or meet at it don't matter. I enjoy helping people with food. So that's kind of why I was kind of drawn to do this in the first place. It was not something that I've ever done before either, but people in my family come to me now more than anything. I have a lot of older people in my family that are all health conscious and all that stuff. So to me, it's kind of like, what, if I could help, I want to help. Something simple like this. It's just, teaching people how to cut a fish or teaching people how to season something. It makes their life better. It makes my life better. That's as simple as it comes.
Well, I love it. Chef AJ DiGregorio, thank you so much for joining us today. We also want to thank Kathleen Stanley, who's the chair of the Long Island Go Red for Women movement. And we want to remind everyone to save the date, February 16th. That will be the Go Red for Women luncheon, and that's taking place at the Crest Hollow Country Club. If you have your phone, you can scan that code right there, and you'll be able to actually just click right onto the website. On behalf of everyone at the American Heart Association in Long Island and the greater New York City area, we want to thank you for joining us, and we wish you a happy holiday season. Take care, everyone.
All right, thank you.